There are moments in history that do not stretch across centuries or even years, just days, hours, seconds, when the entire fate of humanity balanced on a trembling edge, and one wrong breath could have erased everything we know. These were not just bad times. They were days when the planet itself seemed to hold its breath, when chaos and chance played dice with the human race. And the frightening truth? None of them began with fanfare. No trumpets, no warnings. Just ordinary mornings that became the darkest pages in our collective story. Some were born from arrogance, others from nature's fury. A few began in silence, under skies too calm to hint at the horror waiting beneath. But all share one thing, the thin line between survival and extinction. Tonight we walk through 5 of those days, the moments that almost ended us. Day 1, the calendar chaos, 1582. In October 1582, time itself broke. It wasn't a war, nor a plague, nor a storm, but something far more unsettling. Overnight, entire nations awoke to find that 10 days of their lives had vanished. Thursday, October 4th, was followed not by Friday, October 5th, but by Friday, October 15th. 10 days gone, erased by decree. The cause was the Gregorian calendar reform, ordered by Pope Gregory XIII. For centuries, Europe had used the old Julian calendar, but it had drifted out of sync with the solar year. Easter, once tied to the spring equinox, was sliding across the seasons like a ghost. To fix time, the Church decided to delete it. But to the people of the 16th century, peasants, merchants, even scholars, it wasn't a correction, it was an abomination. They watched as priests and kings announced that time could be rewritten by royal will, that the sun and moon themselves could be legislated. In towns across Italy, France, and Spain, rumors spread. The Pope had stolen their lives. Farmers rioted, terrified their rents or wages for the missing days would vanish too. In parts of Central Europe, mobs attacked officials shouting, "Give us back our days!" Superstitions flourished. Some believed the calendar shift was a sign of apocalypse, that angels were counting down the final hours. For astronomers, the reform was a triumph of logic. For the masses, it was the day the Church played God. People who went to sleep on the 4th awoke to find their birthdays erased, debts forgotten, or souls unmoored. And perhaps the most haunting thought, in those lost 10 days, no prayers were heard, no time passed, no history written. A void swallowed a continent, and from it, a new age of reckoning began. Time had been weaponized, and humanity learned for the first time that even reality could be edited. Day 2, the birth of the atomic age, 1945. August 6th, 1945. A date that fractured human morality itself. As the sun rose over Hiroshima, a silver aircraft drifted through the sky like a silent omen. Its name was Enola Gay, and inside it rested a device codenamed Little Boy. No one on the ground knew that in a few moments, time, again, would split into before and after. At 8:15 a.m., the bomb dropped. A flash brighter than 1,000 suns erupted, fusing shadows into walls, vaporizing flesh, and bending the very laws of physics. Within seconds, 70,000 people ceased to exist. And within minutes, the world entered a new era, the atomic age, where annihilation became a form of diplomacy. To the victors, it was the price of ending war. To the victims, it was the birth of a nightmare that would never end. Scientists at Los Alamos watched their creation in stunned silence. The man who led them, J. Robert Oppenheimer, whispered words from the Bhagavad Gita. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." He knew in that moment that humanity had crossed a threshold it could never return from. The power of the gods, creation and destruction, now rested in trembling human hands. But the most chilling part came later. Governments realized that fear itself could be a weapon. The Cold War was born not from the ashes of Hiroshima, but from the realization that whoever controlled fear controlled the world. Scientists became soldiers. Equations became threats. And the Earth became a chessboard balanced on the edge of extinction. Hiroshima didn't just end a war, it began the countdown to humanity's self-destruction. Day 3, the Castle Bravo Fallout, 1954. March 1st, 1954, 6:45 a.m. On a small coral atoll in the Pacific Ocean, the United States prepared to detonate the most powerful weapon it had ever built. The operation's name was Castle Bravo. The scientists at Bikini Atoll expected a blast of 5 megatons. But what erupted that morning was 15 megatons, 3 times stronger than they predicted. In an instant, the sky became a second sun. The explosion was so bright, witnesses over 250 miles away saw the flash and thought the world was ending. Within minutes, a mushroom cloud rose 25 miles into the air, spreading invisible death across the ocean winds. But this wasn't just another nuclear test. This was a mistake that changed the rules of the world. The fallout, a fine white powder, drifted silently over nearby islands. Children played in it, thinking it was snow. They didn't know it was radioactive ash falling from the heavens like divine punishment. Fishermen aboard the Lucky Dragon No. 5, a Japanese tuna boat, watched the sky turn to fire. Hours later, ash covered their ship. They brushed it from their skin. They didn't know it was killing them. Within weeks, they fell sick. One by one, they began to die. The blast contaminated over 7,000 square miles of ocean. Entire island communities had to be evacuated. Some never returned. The Pacific, once the cradle of paradise, had become a graveyard of experiments. And yet, governments downplayed the disaster. They called it an unfortunate event. They denied the scale. They hid the consequences. But behind closed doors, scientists realized something far darker. That the hydrogen bomb was too powerful for anyone to control. They had created a weapon that didn't just destroy cities, it could alter the planet itself. The fallout clouds circled the Earth. Radioactive dust was found in the rain, in the soil, even in the milk people drank. Humanity had, unknowingly, contaminated its own ecosystem. And the most terrifying part? The bomb that caused all of this was an accident. Sound of Geiger counterclicking. Static grows louder. One test, one miscalculation, one flash of light, and the illusion of control vanished forever. The world had crossed another invisible line, not with war, but with science itself. The Cold War's shadow grew darker. The oceans became silent witnesses, and the question whispered through the halls of every lab, every military base, every government chamber. If this was a mistake, what happens when we do it on purpose? Day 4. The day the world went to war, 1939. September 1st, 1939. The day humanity learned that peace is fragile and ambition is louder than reason. At dawn, the German battleship Schleswig-Holstein opened fire on a Polish fortress in Westerplatte. The echoes of those shells didn't just mark the start of a battle, they marked the beginning of the most devastating war in human history. Within hours, the world began to unravel. Borders dissolved into front lines, flags turned into targets, and millions of lives became pawns in a game played by men who believed they were gods. Hitler's armies stormed across Europe like a steel tide, crushing nations beneath their boots. Cities burned, families vanished. The old world order, already trembling from the scars of the First World War, finally collapsed under the weight of human hatred. Britain and France declared war, but no one truly understood what had been unleashed. They called it another war in Europe. They didn't yet know it would become a war for the soul of humanity. The invasion of Poland was swift, brutal, and unrelenting. Civilians were slaughtered, villages erased, and the air, once filled with the songs of farmers and merchants, now carried only the distant hum of bombers. In the years that followed, the world would witness horrors it could never unsee. The concentration camps, the atomic fire, the rivers of blood that flowed from Stalingrad to Normandy. But it all began here, with the sound of a single gunshot in a city most of the world had never heard of. What made this day truly terrifying wasn't just the violence, but the silence that followed. The silence of nations hesitating to act. The silence of ordinary people convincing themselves that evil could be reasoned with. That silence became the soundtrack of the 20th century. The world went to war not because it had to, but because too many people believed someone else would stop it. In 6 years, over 70 million lives would be erased. Cities would crumble. Empires would fall. And by the time it ended, humanity had looked into its own reflection and seen the monster staring back. The war began with men marching in perfect formation. It ended with cities reduced to ash and silence. Day 5, the digital fracture, 2007, 2007. The year the world quietly split in two, not by bombs or borders, but by data. While most of humanity scrolled, clicked, and laughed online, something else was happening beneath the code, a silent rupture that would change civilization forever. That year, the first iPhone hit the market, a sleek rectangle of glass and metal. Beautiful, harmless, revolutionary. But behind its glow, it carried something deeper, the beginning of permanent connection. In 2007, Facebook expanded beyond college students. YouTube exploded. Twitter went global. Google launched Android. And within 12 short months, billions of human beings unknowingly stepped into a digital experiment with no exit plan. The world's attention, once scattered, once human, became data. Clicks became currency. Emotions became algorithms. For the first time in history, humanity built a mirror that could see its soul, and then began to sell it back to itself. Governments realized they no longer needed soldiers to control a nation. They just needed to control the feed. Corporations discovered that addiction could be engineered. Politicians learned that truth was optional. And users, billions of them, became unpaid workers, feeding a machine that understood them better than they understood themselves. 2007 wasn't the year we connected. It was the year we surrendered. We handed over our privacy, our focus, our memories, pixel by pixel, willingly. The internet had promised freedom. Instead, it built the most efficient surveillance system in human history. And the most haunting part? No one noticed. While the bombs of the 20th century scarred the earth, the wars of the 21st would scar the mind. Cyber warfare, misinformation, deep fakes, data leaks, all born from that fracture, that quiet year when humanity digitized itself. Every revolution before 2007 changed how humans lived, but this one changed what it meant to be human. There were no soldiers, no screams, no rubble, only a generation staring into the blue light, slowly forgetting how to look away. The fall of empires used to be measured in wars. Now it's measured in screen time. 5 moments when humanity touched the edge of its own extinction and looked away. We erased time itself in 1582, unleashed atomic fire in 1945, poisoned paradise in 1954, drowned the world in war in 1939, and finally fractured our own minds in 2007. Each day, different faces, different eras, the same heartbeat. The pursuit of progress without pause. We've conquered land, sea, sky, even the atom. Yet somehow we remain prisoners of our own inventions. History is not a straight line. It's a loop, spinning faster with every discovery, every ambition, every mistake we refuse to learn from. The most terrifying truth isn't that we might destroy ourselves. It's that we might do it again, thinking we're saving the world. In every century, the tools change. Swords, bombs, algorithms. But the hands that hold them, they're still human, still proud, still blind. Maybe that's what makes us dangerous. Not our weapons, but our memory. Too short to remember, too stubborn to change. So when the next fracture comes, and it will, remember this. Every empire thought it was invincible. Every discovery thought it was salvation. Every age thought it was different, until it wasn't. dark legacies. Power fades. Greed remains. The truth echoes forever.